this session. We have an exciting session about Gen Z and future skills and future of work. You know, we are 4IR institution, and really we're talking about 5IR at this point in time as well. Really what we have here today is an exciting lineup of the future skills, future of work, a really exciting topic that I think is a really important one for the future. You know, we live in an interconnected, digitized world today, and it's so important to understand what those future skills are that graduates require and where will the future of work be. And we have really great presenters today joining us, discussing this topic, unpacking it for us. And we want you to enjoy this discussion. We want you to engage with us in this discussion. You know, we've got a Q&A function at the end of the session. Please keep all your questions for the end of the session and engage with us throughout this presentation. So joining me today, we have Zanele Modiba, the Vice President of the UJ Convocation, Portia Mkhabela, the Head of ACCA South Africa, Botswana and RMM, Jamie Lyon, Portfolio Head, Business Manager, Professional Insights, ACCA Global, Simphiwe Zuma, Stakeholder Manager, AdaptIT, and Somakwabe, UJ Alumnus. So on that note, I'm going to introduce Ms. Zanele Modiba, the Vice President of the UJ Convocation, and just a brief introduction to her. Zanele Modiba is a seasoned C-suite executive specializing in strategic marketing branding. She is currently the Managing Director of her own strategic marketing consultancy firm. She has supported learning companies in the financial services sector, the FMCG sector, and leading incubators, government departments, and NGOs, universities, and various other corporations. Zanele is the creator of the Laureus Award-nominated African-themed board game, a pioneering product that seeks to educate and entertain South Africans and promote the knowledge of all African countries and its many distinctive features. Zanele obtained a Master's of Management degree specializing in entrepreneurship and new venture creation from Wits University in 2017. The thesis investigated the entrepreneurial intentions of Black professionals within the financial services sector. She has also obtained a postgraduate marketing diploma from UNISA in 2012 and obtained a Bachelor's of Art degree in corporate communication from UJ in 2002. Zanele is currently the Deputy President of the Convocation of the University of Johannesburg, the Deputy Chairperson of the Northern Cape Tourism Authority, and a board member of the Northern Cape Gambling Board. Over to you, Zanele.
Thank you so much, Husain. Good evening and welcome. My role today is to really talk about the Convocation and the alumni. The role of the Convocation is crucial more now than ever. Post-hard lockdown, it's evident that connection, collaboration, and compassion are the new lighthouse indicators that will assist in charting our new way forward. An extensive, meaningful network has never been more necessary and valuable. Our role as a Convocation is essentially to develop and coordinate, as well as evaluate programs and projects that really promote this connection, promote this collaboration, and really do so with compassion. Our products and programs are designed to connect alumni, mainly through affinity groups, academic channels, and events and programs. This platform needs robust engagement and exploration. I look forward to the role of our panelists as they speak about what the world of work looks like and the how of work in the future and now. I'll briefly run through some of our programs, our benefits for the future, and our current interventions through our presentation. Our presentation is now on the screen, and it essentially speaks to the membership of the Convocation. Who is the Convocation and alumni? Essentially, they are the diplomats and graduates of the formal subsidized qualifications from the University of Johannesburg, Rand Afrikaans University previously, and the previous Technikon Witwatersrand. Really, we essentially are part of the whole cohort with the Vice Chancellor, the Principal, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, the registrars, and most of the permanent academic employees, as well as retired permanent academic employees. The Convocation really is charged to make sure that the alumni is really governed through our act and through the registrar, and making sure that the executive committee of the Convocation receives the reports and really engages what's the interest of the alumnus and the convocants. We're essentially here to serve you. The UJ Convocation consists of 5 members, myself as the Deputy President, our erstwhile President, Professor Boitumelo Dayale, Mr. Msizi Khoza, who's also a member of council, Ms. Confidence Chilandi, who's also a member of council, and Ms. Nondumise Mvubu, who's also a member of council. This is the leadership that really assists you in crafting the programs and interventions that will help you move forward as the Alumni and Convocation in the future. Currently, we have 5 key programs that we are running. One that is very close to our hearts is the female residents, but with COVID, we've had to delay our groundbreaking project, but this is something that definitely in the next 2 to 3 years we'll be implementing. Our Alumni House and Wellness House is something that we are so excited about, and currently it's based in the MBA facilities, and this will be launched in the next few months. Please look out for it. We've got our affinity groups that I'll speak to shortly. Our graduate employability is really, really important to us. We know that a lot of South Africans are suffering with unemployment. We know that that employment is hitting a lot of graduates a lot, and we are looking to have interventions, especially digitally, speaking about 4IR, to make sure that our graduates are able to use their skill sets to create enterprise and industries for themselves. And then we've got finally development and fundraising. This really came and shone through in the past weeks, where we had the KZN floods, and really the Convocation, the Alumnus, really came through in making sure that our donations were coupled with the university's efforts to make sure that the alumni was also contributing to solving the issues of our country. Essentially, the importance of being an UJ alumni is to make sure that you're engaged, you reconnect with your network to make sure that you really have something that is valuable that you can mine. You expand your network. Like I said, connection is so important in this new 4IR world. And mentorship. Mentorship is really important, not only receiving mentorship, but also becoming a mentor. This is really the crux of what it means to be a UJ alumni and how it is to benefit. Our benefits are many. Please make sure that you go to our website, UJ website, which is uj.ac.za, to make sure that you look at the benefits. Briefly, you've got your library services, you've got your online services, wellness programs, you've got the great First World Gym that we have over there, UJ Arts and Culture, sports, all of the benefits from UJ FM. Make sure that you go online and see what type of membership gets you what type of benefit. This is really, really being a project that we've really immersed ourselves in, and we've really crafted and curated it so that it makes sense for our alumni. Social media has been a great leveler of information. We all know that lockdown makes sure that we were online, and the percentages have increased exponentially. So make sure that you go to @UJ Alumni for Facebook and look at all our interventions. You'll see exactly there what you need to do to be able to connect and expand your network meaningfully. Also make sure that you go into our LinkedIn @UJ Alumni. It's also just as robust. We've got programs coming up. All of these programs, including this one, are featured on platforms like that. If you update your details, you'll also be able to become more in tune to what's happening and also receive benefits and giveaways that are really important. If you go to our platforms, you'll see that on the usual website under alumni section, you can update your details under the iEnabler platform. And essentially that is exactly what it does. It enables you to connect meaningfully, to connect in a way that is going to give you the values and the benefits. If you don't use the platforms and you pay, you won't get the benefits if you don't engage. So essentially, we are saying that this platform enables you to connect meaningfully and also benefit as a mentor or a mentee. So please make sure that you connect with the alumni office if there are any challenges that you face. One of our prized products is the UJ Alumni Impumelelo magazine. We've already had about 9 editions coming through. Our next one is coming out in September. This is such a wealth of information for you because you get an opportunity to deal in depthly with each topic. So there are 8 editions, like I've said. The 9th one will be in September, and we're looking forward to featuring one of our internal stakeholders. The alumni chapters and affinity groups is our really, I think we shine here because we've been launching these for the past couple of months. And really what it does, it really puts the faces to the ideas. It brings people together. And an alumni chapter is one of those things that really helps people that are in the same region, in the same town, connect and make sure that they volunteer with each other and also expand their network. And an affinity group is a group that's formed by an alumni. So if you're an alumni and you have an affinity or you have a product or you have an idea that you want to share, you have a group of people and a network that you know that is from UJ, you can put your hand up and say, I want to form an affinity group. And if it makes sense and it matches with our values, it's something that we will look into. So a lot of our, the heads of our affinity groups are people that have come to us to say, actually, I'm sitting in the financial services sector. Actually, I'm sitting in health services. I've got a group of people who are former UJ and we've got input we want to make. And then you call us and then we set up an affinity group. So this is really where you can shine through your volunteerism and also benefit as a result. Some of the events that we've had in the years is really, we've had an IT audit event, we've had a Women in ICT event as well, we've had a series of conversations sharing solutions with our former alumni. So these are people that are currently technical masters in their field. They are running organizations, they are in organizations, they are entrepreneurs in their own right. And they're essentially saying that I'm a technical master at X. And you might need that X experience. And then we have these sessions to really share the details with our alumni. So these are really sort of products that you need to be engaging in and making sure that you interact with. Money Matters with PPS was one of them. We've recently launched a USA chapter, which was a virtual meet and greet. And of course, some of these things we're doing virtually. And we have our retired academics luncheon as well, which obviously they form part of our convocation. So these are some of the established chapters and groups that you'll find. The mining and engineering are part of our groups. Commercial accounting, which is this one, is part of our groups. The law affinity group. So really, what we're essentially saying is that there are so many groups that we're trying to form for your benefit. Please make sure that you use the platforms and make sure that if you have an idea of an affinity group, you come to us and then you launch it. And as I close, I really want to focus on the people that make this happen. We've got Zanele Modiba, our senior manager from UJ, from the Alumni, Tabiso, who's organizing these events, Kopano, and Victor, who make sure that they weave this together. We as the Exco have the benefit of actually just giving you the product, and this is the brick and mortar and scaffolding that brings that to life. I'm focusing on them specifically because they are there to serve you. As much as they serve us, they are there to serve you and hosting events like this. So without further ado, I'd like to take it back to Husain to make sure that we continue this robust discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zanele. Really exciting information shared there regarding the UJ convocation. We'll now head over to the head of ACCE South Africa, Portia Mkhabela. She will provide insight into one of the most exciting and future-looking organizations, the ACC. Over to you, Portia.
Okay, thank you so much, Husain. Good evening, everybody. It is such a great pleasure and an honor for us as ACCA to be launching this report with one of the best universities we have in South Africa, and that is University of Johannesburg. We want to commend the alumni work that you are doing, and it is not by mistake that ACCA is launching this product today with UJ, not any other university, but University of Johannesburg. And it's also a pleasure for us to announce the fact that you are still one of our accredited institutions in UJ, and it is not a mistake that this report is being launched with UJ today. Thank you so much. I'm not really going to take too much time, but just to share with you who we are. We are an institution that is global in nature, and our responsibility in South Africa is to look after the Southern Africa. Our purpose as an organization is that all our work is framed around ACCA strategy with a vision to 2025, and that is to be a #1 in developing the professional accountant of the world and what the accountants actually need. And to meet this strategy as ACCA, we need people who are behind it 100%, who are there to ACCA corporate values of inclusivity, integrity, and innovation. And these values matter to us because as much as we exist, we also want these values to matter externally. So this is who we are as ACCA, and we are quite excited to be launching this report today, and in partnership with one of our accredited institutions. Husain, over to you.
Thank you, Portia. A truly innovative organization. We'll now move over to our guest speaker, Jamie Lyon, that will be joining us remotely. A brief bio of Jamie. Jamie is the portfolio head of business management at the ACCA. Working across the world, Jamie leads a team of researchers producing cutting-edge, practical, and accessible advice and research on the most pressing issues impacting the global business environment and the future of the accounting profession, including research areas of diverse as business, as financial transformation, risk and corporate governance, talent management, and skill development technology, and the future of work. Prior to the ACCA, his career was spent working in a number of FTSE 100 businesses in various financial and management roles. Jamie is a qualified accountant and holds a degree in economics from Sheffield University. Over to you, Jamie.
Super, thank you so much, Husain, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you all today. I just want to check, can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, that's fabulous. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to share some slides, so just bear with me 1 second, please. Apologies for that. Just let me know if you can see the slides.
We can see your slides.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Husain. Thank you so much to the University of Johannesburg for inviting ACCA to come and talk to you about something that we think is really important, which is really looking at Generation Z and the new generation coming into the global world of work. My name is Jamie Lyon. I'm the Global Research Lead working in London for ACCA. And my team conducts all sorts of research on different issues impacting the future of accountancy and the future of work. I'm conscious that many of you on the webinar today are probably Generation Z themselves. So if it feels like I'm talking to you directly at times, I do apologise for that. And of course, there may be some things in the presentation that really resonate with you, and there may be things that maybe you're less sure about as well, and it'll be good to sort of have the panel discussion as well and hear your thoughts and really take it from there. So in terms of my work, I guess my interest really is particularly at the moment around the future of work, talent development, skills development in the accountancy profession. And there's naturally just a huge amount happening in that space right now. But as part of this specific research, what we really wanted to understand was what is happening with this new generation coming into the workplace. Of course, we were interested in what the potential interest was in the accountancy sector, but also what their aspirations and dreams are for the future. And it was a fascinating piece of research to undertake. And before I get into some of the findings around this, what I do want to say is that my overall conclusion was that if you are in Generation Z and you're coming into the workplace now, or you're very early on in your career, I think this generation is going to have an indelible impact on the future of work and bring so many positives into the workplace. OK, so I'm just going to move us on a little bit here, and I guess I want to just start with a little bit of context, really, because it's worth just taking a step back and just being clear on how we've defined Generation Z in this piece of research. So we categorise this group as being born between 1995 to 2010. That makes the oldest of that group about 27 years of age, 28 years of age, already obviously in the workplace, and the very youngest about 11, 12, 13 years. So really just coming into high school at the moment. Now, if you look across the world, Gen Z make up about 1.8 billion people in the global population, roughly a quarter of the world's population. And one of the things that we do point out in the research and the report is some of those key influences that have really shaped their existence as they've come of age. And I'm just going to start with this chart here that you can see on the slide in front of you and take a quick run through the economic picture that Gen Z and many of you on this session today have been born into, because from a global perspective, I think it gives us a little bit of context. And, you know, when I look back, if you look at that sort of left-hand chart here, you know, the economic picture, the late 90s was the sort of the Nice period, this non-inflationary, expansionary, pretty benign for the global economy, low inflation, low interest rates. We got to the early 2000s, China joined the World Trade Organization, and that really, China became integrated into the global economy. And then, of course, that really led to Western markets and triggering an export-led boom in China. Then we got to 2007, we had Lehman collapse, and of course we had the financial crisis. And then we move on again, and these are all things that are certainly have shaped the parents of Generation Z, but also potentially shape young Gen Z coming into the workplace as well now. And of course, over the last 18 months, we've had the COVID pandemic that arguably had a disproportionate impact on young people, and I'll come back to that. And we've seen other challenges in the global economy as well right now. And then if I go over to the visual on the right-hand side here, clearly a lot of you will recognise the logos on this page. The technology impact is just huge. It has been for the last 10, 15 years, the rise of mobile, the growth of the internet, the explosion of social media. There's no doubt that Gen Z are the most globally peer-connected generation in history. And actually, we do see a lot more blurring of those online and physical relationships. And I'd say Gen Z are really coming into the workplace and they're bringing that technology knowledge, and they do have expectations around it as well. So there's no doubt that there's a huge amount of things in the environment that are really shaping the working lives of Generation Z as we look forward. We know technology, digital transformation is transforming the global economy. It's changing jobs in all professions. It's changing jobs in accountancy. Technology is changing the role of accountants. It's changing how work gets done, where it gets done, who does the work. And because of that, skills and education is transforming, and we need to continue to change that and transform that, because that's going to have a profound impact as well in terms of the skills that are needed. And also you'll see here on this slide as well, think about how careers are changing. That traditional career model being totally upended. Careers are transforming. We think about portfolio careers, increased life expectancy, meaning people are going to be in the workplace longer. We are shifting to hybrid working models accelerated by COVID. So there's a huge amount in the mix that is really shaping the working lives for the future of this generation. So that's context. I want to get into some of the survey data here now. And what I would say is I just wanted to share a few brief highlights, because I know I don't have a huge amount of time. So in terms of the study that we ran on GenZ, we had about 9,000 respondents. So one of the largest ever surveys of GenZ, certainly in the accountancy profession. And we started with a question which is around fundamentally, what gives these young people sleepless nights? What are the concerns for the future? And so you can see right at the top of this chart, lack of job opportunities, job security is the biggest concern, closely followed by personal well-being, mental health concerns. And that was remarkably consistent across different geographies and sectors. Actually, there is clearly, when this survey was undertaken, clearly there's a huge COVID-19 impact here that hasn't gone away. But also that COVID-19 impact is just being compounded by a whole range of other national and global economic factors that are really coming together to put a huge amount of pressure, we think, on young people. No surprise, job security is a huge concern at the moment, and of course we talked about that in the introduction before. But even beyond COVID, now clearly at the moment, certainly in a lot of markets around the world, we're seeing the economic volatility, we're seeing some of the challenges in terms of rising prices, inflation caused by a number of different things, living standards being impacted. So there's just lots of challenges facing young people entering the workforce right now. And we need to think very carefully as organisations about how those young people are engaged and how they are supported. If you look down this chart, you will see that issues such as sustainability, climate change, they seem to score a little bit lower down. Now, I'm not suggesting that those issues aren't important to the youngest generation today, but I think what we're seeing here is just this is all relative, and it's really the economic challenges that are I guess causing most concern. So we had some questions in the research and the survey about just generally, thinking about businesses today. What do Generation Z think? And you can see on this slide here, the data sort of says that as a group, they're broadly convinced that businesses can have a positive impact on society. Businesses, they see them as using technology to improve the workplace, and that's all good news. But actually, there's room for improvement. So if you look at some of the data here, just over half agree that businesses have customers' best interests at heart. Less than half think businesses prioritise and take good care of their employees. And probably even more sobering than that, many are not convinced that business leaders have integrity or do what they say. And also, the challenge that supersedes everything else, climate change, again, there are concerns here from this generation in terms of our businesses truly pulling the weight around that. So some things which are positive, some things which I think are slightly more negative, and perhaps things for organisations to think about. Technology, naturally we had to ask about technology. Again, some pretty simple data points for us to digest here. No surprise, the majority of young people see themselves as very comfortable with tech. But actually, if you look towards the right-hand side, almost 3/5, 60% have concerns about the impact of technology on their own jobs for the future, which I think is quite interesting, given we are talking about the digital natives who are so infused with technology in their personal lives. We also wanted to understand what attracted younger people to organisation. as well as, of course, for the accountancy profession itself. You'll see a number of different things here, but fundamentally, no surprise, it's about acquiring skills. Work-life balance is important as well. Again, that's no surprise, and I think that continues to tick up. There's something about accountancy and our qualifications which means that people are quite interested in going into the profession because it affords mobility and portability in your career beyond national boundaries, and we've seen that a lot in a lot of the research we've conducted over many years, and that seems to remain true here. Okay, so there are some short survey data points, but I actually wanted to get into some of the colour from our roundtables, because we ran lots of different engagement points, roundtables, interviews with leading organisations around the world in many different markets, and I just wanted to summarise and feedback what employers were telling us about what they saw with Gen Z. And they said on talent, they said they're super smart, they're entrepreneurial, they're a generation who are willing to challenge, they will question established ways of things. They are natural disruptors, they're very innovative. On technology, I touched on this, no surprise, they're digitally savvy, they're instantaneously connected, they are bringing technology into the workplace and they have expectations around it. On leadership, very interesting, there was a really big thing in here around they want their voice to be heard. They appear to be, I'm a Generation Xer, they appear to be less hierarchical than perhaps other generations in the workplace. They want meritocracy, they want access to leadership. I think that has profound implications for organisation culture and leadership in the future, because we're going to have to understand how we get the best out of this cohort of talent and what that means in terms of particularly the style of leadership and organisation culture. That's going to be really big. On learning, no surprise, they're quick learners, natural self-curators, very visual. Peer-to-peer learning is clearly getting more and more important. I'm sure you've been leveraging that at the university as well. Social media, digital learning. So some really interesting reflections around how they like to learn, and again what the implications are for organisations seeking to, first of all, bridge the gap between university and coming into the workplace, but also this point about continuous learning. Careers are changing, so we're all going to have to continuously learn, reskill. That has big implications for how we engage this generation in really quality learning programs on offer from organisations. On careers, they want progression fast. Naturally, they seek promotion. They are prepared to walk away if they feel that their career isn't moving on in the way that they wish it to. Organisations are very clear. They know Gen Z have been hit hard at the pandemic. A lot of focus at the moment around employee engagement, wellbeing programs, thinking about how do we onboard this generation properly, and how do we help them build relationships in virtual worlds. If we accept that the future of work is going to be hybrid, that again has, I would contest, profound consequences for how we engage our people, how they work in teams, and how they navigate the organisations in which they work. And I think some of that, we don't quite know how all of that is going to fall out at the moment. We're going to have to see the true implication and consequence, I think, of hybrid work in the future. And Gen Z will definitely have an input into that. And what they value in employers, I touched on this previously, but things like, the right career opportunities, the provision of skills, good work-life balance, meritocratic culture, clear purpose, really wanting to be part of the vision of the organisation. So very quickly in the report, and I'll just start to wrap this up, we took all of those reflections away and we developed some thinking around, well, how do organisations need to think about engaging their own Gen Z workforce? I wasn't going to talk to all of these today, but they are obviously covered in the report. But also thinking about Gen Z themselves, if I was 21 again, what would Jamie, who was 21, tell himself about navigating the next 20, 25 years. And I think on reflection, sometimes we don't often share our wisdom on the most obvious things. With on this slide here, we think about being prepared to disrupt yourself. I think that's really important now. We think about we've talked about mentors in the introduction, seeking mentors, finding sponsors, being prepared to continuously learn, building lifelong networks, because personal relationships really matter when you are developing your career, and they matter for a lifetime. They're really, really important. So we developed some thinking around what would we say to our Gen Z members who are really starting their careers and thinking about the future ahead, and hopefully we'll get into some of that in the panel discussion. So that was a very, very quick tour through our Generation Z global research from ACCA. I hope some of that resonates, and I hope that tees up our conversation. And I think it's time for me to hand back to you.
Thank you, Jamie. What an interesting discussion, an interesting report. I'm sure there'll be many questions that will come through in the Q&A regarding this specific report. We're now going to head into the panel discussion, and joining me is Jamie, who I've introduced already. We also have Gift and Simphiwe joining us in this panel discussion. I'm going to do a brief introduction to Simphiwe. Simphiwe is an experienced accountant currently working as a stakeholder manager in sub-Saharan Africa for CaseWare Africa, where she focuses on stakeholder management and advancing the use of technology to improve the way business is done by auditors and accountants across the African continent. She's an Associate General Accountant and AGSA registered with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, and holds a master's degree in business administration from the Wits Business School. She's an active citizen and international speaker who is passionate about the empowerment of young people and the role education plays in the development and advancement of Africa, particularly through the use of technology. We also have Gift joining us. Gift is an alumni of the UJ Department of Commercial Accounting who completed a diploma in accountancy. She is currently working at PricewaterhouseCoopers as an internal audit trainee. She previously was an academic trainee at the UJ for the internal audit students. Gift believes in passion and consistency as the key fundamentals to success. So let's start this panel discussion. I've got a few questions lined up in the panel discussion. Jamie, the first question is for you. How can education establishments best support Gen Z in preparing them for the world of work? So over to you, Jamie.
Well, that's a great question, Husain, and thank you for sending the first question to me. I think there's a number of things that we should be thinking about as further education establishments. Firstly, clearly, I talked a lot about technology and digitalization in the workplace, and how organizations increasingly are looking at different platforms, whether that's simulation, gamification, peer-to-peer learning, all of those sorts of things. That sort of immersive education, I think, is going to become much more important in the future. And I think business schools, universities need to be very much thinking about how they deliver and I know you are thinking about it, and I know the University of Johannesburg thinks about this a lot, but thinking about how we offer more immersive education in the future, I think, is going to be really important. So that's one thing I'd say. I'd say the other thing, and I'm thinking more about just some of the big thematics that will impact young people in the workplace in the future, and it doesn't actually matter whether those young people go into the accountancy profession or the legal profession or different areas. I think there are certain thematics, and I pick out things like the sustainability and ESG agenda, which are just going to become, they already are important, but they're going to become even more important. And what we're seeing, obviously, from an accountancy point of view, is we're seeing more and more that these types of issues are incorporated into curricula. So that's going to be, I think, future-proofing that next generation of talent around some of those emerging issues and areas is going to be so important. So I'll probably pull out those two things to kick us off.
Fantastic, Jamie. Really some insightful points from you from an academic perspective. I've got now a question for Simphiwe. Simphiwe, what do you see as the biggest challenges facing employers managing the Generation Z in the workplace?
Thank you very much for that question, Husain, and good evening to everyone. A very interesting conversation we're having today, and just from the perspective of the employer managing Generation Z, I would say the biggest challenge is having a mindset shift where we are no longer approaching Gen Z employees as we would have previous generations. For example, starting off, and in particular with the rise of COVID, we saw the acceleration that blurred the line between 9 to 5 and results orientation. And what we're seeing with the Generation Z is they're more interested in output versus are you monitoring them clocking in on a 9 to 5 basis. So a mindset shift with regards to what is the results that the person has produced versus were they at work from 9 to 5, for example. And then secondly, what we're hearing from them is they want to be seen and they want to be heard and they want to be carried through the process. So transparency is very important when you're dealing with this generation. They want to be involved in terms of the decision. And one of the things that came through the report is there's a lack of trust when it comes to business leaders. And I think it's driven through them not understanding or perhaps not seeing the follow through on the promises made. And what we need to do as business leaders is to collaborate and involve them through the process so that they feel part of the journey. And then what was also interesting to note was their need for continuity of growth. So within a short space of time to see themselves growing and being promoted. And therefore what that means is re-looking the overall roles that we have in the business, listening to them as well and allowing them to contribute in us reforming the realities of our structures. And then enabling them to see perceived growth. So having, again, bringing it back to transparency where the roles are clearly defined, the journey is clearly defined, because as we heard, they are willing to leave if they don't see progress and they're not seeing the money come through. So those are the things that we need to be bearing in mind. And another interesting point to take from the report was work-life balance. So Gen Z are the type of people that are bringing their whole selves to work. So they want to be in an environment where what are the activities or what is the work culture here? Do I feel I can contribute? Is there anything that is beyond what I need to deliver in terms of my work that also speaks to my personality? Are there opportunities to volunteer? So they bring their whole self to work, and the environment, does the work do anything in terms of my mental health? So as business leaders, those are the things that we need to start considering. What are we putting forward to accommodate the whole person, not just the person who's delivering the numbers for us? And last, but I certainly believe, as Jamie alluded to them as being the digital natives, is technology. And that is a huge investment that every employer needs to bear in mind. This generation has grown up in the technology world, and almost their day-to-day activities are at a press of a button or at a voice command, there's something that's happening. So even in the work environment, we need to be prepared to invest in technology that enables growth for their careers. And an interesting one to note, also coming back to the fact that they bring their whole selves to work. We need to shift our mind away from what instructions or this is how the job is done, and allow them to be disruptors, allow them to be the concept of entrepreneurship. While some have gone out to start their own businesses, allow them to be entrepreneurs within the organizations where they are bringing in innovative ideas and allowing them to just reshape the reality of what the job spec was. So as employers, the biggest challenge is to shift the mind from what we currently know and say, we've got a new generation at play. How are we going to collaborate and enable them to succeed within our organizations? Thanks, Husain.
Thank you, Simphiwe. What I hear there is an inclusive approach for the Gen Z generation. Gift, I now have a question for you. what advice would you personally give to Gen Z professionals in managing their own careers?
Thank you so much for that question, and good evening to everyone. So the advice that I would give to the Gen Z generation is, firstly, we need to stop being so hard on ourselves. And the reason why I say that is we're exposed to social media. We have LinkedIn, Instagram, and it's very easy to keep up to date with everyone's professional career and their journey. And you tend to compare yourself and feel that you're not doing enough. And then secondly, we need to understand the difference between a job and a career. Firstly, a job is just putting food on the table. It is just earning money. And your career is things that you are interested in, your passion. And it is a long time life goal that you want to achieve as a person in the industry that you're working in. And another thing is, the moment we begin to understand the difference between your career and your job, you actually become great in what you want to be. So we begin to able to equip ourselves with the skills that we need. So we need to be ethical. As professionals, we need to be problem solvers. Employers are looking for people that can quickly find a solution, and people that are not scared to tackle challenges and just go for it and throw out ideas and be innovative. So the moment we can see the difference between a job and a career, those skills automatically kick in, and it allows us to become a great professional in the coming future. And lastly, when we become like that, we actually gain more than just a career. We start becoming leaders, we start becoming mentors, we start becoming entrepreneurs and businesswomen and businessmen for the future. So in overall, what I'm saying is that if we can understand the basics of being a professional, I think we can do great things as the Gen Z. Thank you.
Thank you, Gift. Some really good advice given by you over there. I'm going to hand over to Jamie. Jamie, do you have any insights specifically with regards to Gen Z and the report that you'd like to share with us? Maybe specifically on job security, job opportunities. How do organizations work together with Gen Z to overcome this concern that they have? Maybe some insight from your side.
That's a really good question, Husain, actually. I think when it comes to employment opportunities and how organizations work with Gen Z themselves, I think we've got to be very realistic about how careers will play out in the future. You know, when I joined the accountancy profession 25, 30 years ago, careers were a lot more linear in terms of the types of roles you would come into when you first joined the profession, and generally how you would arc through the organization. The reality is, in the global economy, in the global workplace today, organization constructs are different. They are much more agile, much more fluid. I think you see a lot more things like cross-functional collaboration, cross-geography collaboration, virtual working. It's just a much more agile, fluid world in which this generation are coming into the workplace. So I think one of the things that organizations have got to do is have very honest conversations with the young people around what the opportunities are within their organizations, and also help them sort of try and think about and coach them to think about their own careers. It's difficult for organizations to entirely map out, well, here are your next 5 or 6 roles, because we know that today there is so much fast organizational change. But I think organizations need to think about, well, what are the interventions that we can put in place to help people, you know, navigate that slightly less obvious road, actually, you know, for the future. And of course, there are different things organizations can do there in terms of, you know, we talked a little bit about learning offerings before and using technology to really make sure that they're outcome driven, thinking about things like mentoring and coaching and those sorts of, you know, interventions as well to really help people think about, you know, how do I think about my own career, networking opportunities. That's huge. I mean, we talked a little bit about peer-to-peer learning before. I think that is really important, because I think again, and I can only compare it to my own experiences, when I came into an organization 25 years ago, I probably tended to place more weight on what someone very senior in the organisation was telling me, rather than thinking about, well, what do my peers think about this, and there weren't the opportunities to share all of that learning and experience together. Organisations have the tools to do that now and really make those connections across their employee base and across Gen Z. And also, you know, we think about things like reverse mentoring as well, where you're taking younger people and you're helping mentor older people in the workplace. So I think that collaboration piece is really in the hands of employers at the moment, particularly through technology. And I think if organisations can really think about that, because this is a generation that they want to be heard. We said before, they want to be heard. They want transparency. They want meritocracy. They want to have a say, and they want to feel that their views are being heard and that they can make a contribution. And to do that, we have to put the right structures and systems in place from organisations and frameworks. So I think the onus is on.
Sorry, Jamie, you're muted again.
Sorry, I've just pressed the mute button again. But I think the onus is on employers to really think about how they make that collaboration truly work. You know, as we look forward, because that's going to be key to engagement and these young people having good careers in the future.
Yeah, some fantastic insight there from you, Jamie. I think, you know, collaboration is key within any organization, and building those structures and building those governance principles is going to be really important, especially as technology evolves and continues to influence people's work and their daily lives. I'm going to head over to Gift. Gift, do you have any insight into the report yourself that you want to add, specifically on job security maybe, or anything further than that?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So I was very concerned on the mental health. I noticed that 51% of the Gen Z are concerned about mental health, and they are more attracted to organizations that are more likely to take care of their mental health than an organization that is not going to do that. So speaking on collaboration, I actually asked myself, is it possible for organizations and universities to actually collaborate to create a safer space for the Gen Z graduates and the new people that are coming in? Because I feel that the culture at university and the culture in the workplace is quite different. So we face mental health issues from varsity. We are more exposed to depression based on peer pressure, financial issues, academics, and all of those things that we face in varsity. So by the time we get to the workplace, we actually entering with, I don't want to say double, but something like that. We're entering with more mental health issues in the workplace. So if a university and an organization can work together to understand what is the root problem, the root cause of these mental health issues, I feel that by the time we get to the workplace, organizations will have employees that are much happier and more willing to work, because mental health actually affects our quality of work. It also affects our reputational image. I mean, if I come from the University of Johannesburg and I enter into an organization, if my quality of work is already affected based on my mental health, then it sort of speaks something about the place that I come from. They start to question the way you were taught. They start to question what exactly did you learn. But they need to understand that as Gen Z, there's so much going on with us that we feel like there needs to be guidance or mentorship through the transition from going into being a graduate and actually being an employee in the organization that you want to work for. So that's my take on mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Gift some really insightful points over there. Simphiwe, any points from you specifically with regards to the report?
So from my side, with regards to the report, and perhaps I'm being biased being from AdaptIT, it was more the technology aspect, and at some point where the report highlights just how this generation that has grown up in an era of digitization is prepared to walk away if an employer is not willing to make the investment in technology. And I think it goes without saying, in particular to employers today, to say, invest in technology, not only to retain Gen Z, but because the reality of where we find ourselves requires us to do that. So that was point one. And then to reiterate the point that Gift has also made on the role of mentorship for the Gen Z entering the workplace, because there's a lot going on, and when they come into this type of environment, the type of leadership that we need to be is no longer instructive, but more coaching and mentorship as they grow into the different roles within the organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just build on that point, if I may? I think that is so important, this point around coaching, mentorship, and thinking about the culture of your organisation. I think management boards, leadership really do need to think about that very carefully as we go forward, and creating that right culture is going to be really, really important. I wanted just to mention one thing that the report doesn't talk to at all, actually, which is becoming certainly more prominent over the last 12 months. And I just wanted to touch on this very quickly, which is the whole point around diversity in the workplace. And we know there are many different dimensions of that, but link back to the mental health and well-being point. I think one of the things that we are seeing in certain markets around the world now is a growing interest from organisations in terms of neurodiversity, and that, I think, we've seen a lot of issues come out of the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of mental health. We've probably seen, for children coming through education systems now, probably undiagnosed issues around, neurodiversity as well. But actually, that being seen as a real upside for organisations as well, in terms of certain skills that those sort of people bring to the workplace. So just one of my bold predictions is that neurodiversity is going to become a really interesting thing for organisations, and this generation, the generation that will follow them in the workplace. I think there's so much untapped talent there, so it's going to be interesting to see.
Thank you, Jamie. That's fantastic. It's been a fantastic panel discussion. I think there are a lot of questions in the Q&A, and I think I'd like to head over to that and bring out some of those questions. Jamie, the first question is actually for you, and I think this is a really interesting question, and it's going to require some great insight from you. It is mentioned that small businesses are the biggest contributors in the economy. However, South Africa, there's a lack of technology that is the biggest distractor. In your opinion, how can this market be assisted? What is your understanding regarding entrepreneurial technology and entrepreneurial education?
Well, I think it's fair to raise that as a challenge, and some of that also is, we may have the technologies, but we may not have the technology infrastructure and the access to Wi-Fi that we need. I would hope that is going to get better. I think we are slowly in some parts of the world on a journey where that is starting to improve. And in terms of the technology that's available for smaller businesses now, the market, we think about the proliferation of technology platforms over the last 5 to 10 years. I think that's just going to grow and grow and grow, because that market is just so hyper competitive. So I think it's a case of, it is challenging at the moment, but I'm actually quite hopeful on that front that, as we look forward, smaller businesses will have more and more access to the sorts of platforms and apps, and without having to commit to huge costs that they need to actually, start their businesses and run their businesses successfully. I think that market is only going to go one way. It may take some time, but I think it will continue to grow. So maybe some good news there.
Thank you, Jamie. The next question is for the Deputy President, Zanele. We've got quite a few questions around forming affinity groups. Can you maybe give some information about this? How do they go about doing this? As well as, the students also want to know, when will the AGM be held this year?
Okay, thank you so much, Husain. I'll start with the simpler question. So the AGM this year is on the 2nd of September. There will be notifications sent to you well in advance to make sure that you do attend. So look out for those communications. That is on the 2nd of September. 2nd of September. On the question of affinity groups and connecting, I saw some of the questions coming through. So I'm going to give an overall answer to that. So the biggest and the best platform to go to now is to UJ Connect. That is where you'll find every single information around affinity groups, how to connect, how to interact, and how to actually even create events. But for those who don't want to go to UJ Connect, I'm going to throw Nel Lodwabo under the bus and literally give you his email address. So listen up. It's Nel Ledwaba. He's the Senior Manager running Alumni. It's NLEDWABA@uj.ac.za. That is the person to call and contact and make sure that you get all your information. But do yourself a favor, please go on to UJ Connect. And I think there was another question around, I'm going to tackle it now, around anything that the convocation is doing around making sure that graduates' employability becomes something that our alumni can access. So we have been in one of our 5 pillars, we do deal with graduate employability. And our idea as the UJ Convocation executive was to really say that these individuals are graduates, so they've already got the technical mastery of academics. But right now, the world needs exactly that entrepreneurship that Simphiwe was speaking about. So what we are trying to produce as the convocation is a bridge between that. We're trying to produce a digital platform that is going to help these graduates take that academic skill set and some of the in-training that they've been receiving and create that into entrepreneurship. And Jamie was speaking now about the entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial activity. It's interesting to note that there's been an encouraging upswing in entrepreneurship in this country. We've had a 6.7% increase in total entrepreneurship activity. That means that 17.5% of the individuals in this country are participating in entrepreneurship. Our challenge, of course, is the technology. Of that 17.6, they're saying that 52% of them are saying that we will not use technology. Why? Because data is expensive in South Africa, because the technology infrastructure fails our entrepreneurs all the time. But e-commerce is coming in strong and hitting hard. And the COVID has really forced us actually to go into the e-commerce space. So what we as a convocation are looking to do is try to find ideas on how we can help entrepreneurs create their own businesses even before they go into the workplace. So that can be a leverage going into the workplace if that is what they opt to do. Thank you.
Thank you. That's some really great insight from you, specifically on the process and how people can join and engage with you. And that's really insightful. Simphiwe, I've got a question for you specifically. How do businesses or business leaders revive the trust relationship with government based on what has emanated from the Zondo Commission? I think that is a really broad question, and I can throw it to anyone on the panel as well. You know, how do they build this relationship of trust between business leaders and government, again, based on what is going on specifically in our space at this moment in time?
Okay, sure. Can I throw it to anyone on the panel? Very interesting question. And I think for business leaders, again, it's the issue of transparency, I would say, is key in all business interactions, where everything that we are doing as business leaders, let us be as transparent and, again, especially as accountants, speaking to the ethics and bringing together governance issues as well, in terms of the transparency regarding governance and also holding people accountable for the responsibilities that they've been afforded. I think that would be key to that part of the conversation.
Yeah, we've got, is there anyone else on the panel that wants to add to the discussion?
I would love to add to that, yes.
Let's go ahead.
All right.
Portia, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. I was actually expecting that question because we are in an accounting and auditing environment. And one of the things that ACCA has done was to reinvent the qualification, where we specifically focus on ethics. And what is ethics? As a skills development specialist myself, I always say, from home you come with ethics. And what you implement in the workplace should not be different from what you do at home. So for me, this is a fundamental skill or ability that all of us need to have to say there's wrong and right. And you cannot go into an organization and learn about ethics. Ethics is what is incumbent within yourself as a person. You have a choice to say, I'm going to do this the correct way, or I'm going to close my eyes and do it the other way around. But because we are a professional body, the beauty is that anybody that becomes a member, we hold them accountable. So organizations like UJ and many other employers that we work with, the fact that they have members who are registered with us, if there's one thing that we do and we do well at ACCA is to hold people to account. Do not transgress the rules of ethics and code of conduct, because we will hold you accountable. So to add to that, and it's a relevant question that one of the members have actually, or students have actually asked, to say, how do we then ensure that in everything that we do as organizations, ethics become, drawn into everything that we do. And maybe just to add in onto the career aspect, as ACCA, we have what we call My Careers. Please log onto our system as well. Put in your CVs. The fact that some of the students might be coming as ACCA members, it means that you can work globally. The world is actually your oyster. So look at our careers. Those that are looking at auditing and accounting space, look at our website, put in your CV. Let's talk. And I mean, whether we like it or not, our purpose as leaders is to make sure that there's employability. And Gift has also highlighted some of the key areas to say we also need to ensure that there's mental health programs within institutions. So please visit our website as well. You don't need to use one channel. Use as many channels as you can. You don't know which company is going to pick up your CV tomorrow. Thank you so much, Husain.
Thank you, Portia. Some really great insight there. I think, ethics is a key point for any accountant or aspiring accountant. Jamie, just a follow-up question on ethics specifically. I think it's perfectly placed. There's a question here. What is the opinion of Gen Z about ethics since they embrace flexibility and innovation? Sorry, Jamie, you're on mute again.
I am on mute again. Well, I don't think flexibility and innovation are, mutually exclusive from good ethics. I don't think there's. I would say that technology certainly is probably introducing new ethical dilemmas and challenges and opportunities into the workplace, and that's one perhaps for another discussion. But I think we have, when it comes to ethics in this generation, I think this is a generation who is certainly anecdotally, and all the evidence that we've seen through our work is very honest, very candid in the workplace. I talked a little bit before around they want transparency, they want accountability from their leaders, they want meritocracy, they want to be judged on outcomes and what they deliver. So I don't have any concerns around the ethical disposition of this younger generation. I actually think, and I said this at the start of my presentation, I think they're going to be a real breath of fresh air into the world of work, and I think they'll fundamentally change organisations for the better. We know that they are attracted to organisations that have purpose, where they think they can make a difference, where they see that transparency and accountability. So I'm hopeful about the future, and I think this is a generation that will only strengthen ethics within the workplace.
Yeah, Jamie, I think there's a lot of new technologies that bring out new ethical concerns. You're going to have machine biases that come through. You're going to have privacy issues. Beneficial AI, for example, will be something that companies need to talk about, and they have to build these governance frameworks around those points that will come through. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Portia, I have a question for you, and this is the last question in the Q&A. How can we move from educating learners for employability to educating them to be entrepreneurs as part of contributing to our economic sector? And maybe that's a follow-on from what the ACCA specifically does for candidates.
Thank you so much, Husain. I want to believe that entrepreneur is something that you are born with. What we can do is to unleash that potential. And as one of the speakers, I think it was Simphiwe, who said, we need to build entrepreneurship within an employment space as well. So from where we're sitting, one of the biggest strategies that we are pushing as ACCA is that we want to see those accountants competing with the big four in South Africa. And nothing is stopping us. But what is important is how do we then, as professional bodies, as government, and as the public, support those that are running their businesses. And this would obviously latch on to how do we then remain an entrepreneur and say no to certain things that you are asked to do. So hence I said earlier on, ethics become critical. So for you to be an entrepreneur, you need to understand that it's not going to be easy, but you also need to understand that you have an ethical responsibility to the community, to the country, and to the profession itself.
Thank you, Portia. So that brings us to the end. But before we close off, I'm going to hand over to Lebo to do the vote of thanks. Lebo, over to you.
Thank you, Husain. We have come to a part in the program where the Department of Commercial Accounting would like to thank our contributors to today's event. Jamie, who's all the way from the UK, and I think the pandemic has brought us closer. I mean, we wouldn't have done this event in any other setting, logistics and travel. So we're very grateful that we're able to connect to people so far, yet bring them so close. Jamie touched on important points which can be carried forward and reflected on from the education perspective, the employer perspective, as well as our graduates who are the Gen Zs. We'd like to thank ACCA for the good working relationship that you've had with the Department of Commercial Accounting. It is really valued, and your support and continuous support is appreciated. Simphiwe, who is the employer from AdaptIT, these are the stakeholders that we at the Department of Commercial Accounting wish to build relationships with, and we appreciate your presence here today. To the Alumni Office, who we work well together with and collaborated on this event with, it's always a pleasure to collaborate with you. You make this process so seamless, and we thank you for that. Thank you to the technical team, Daryl and Alec, who make sure that we're here, we're on the screens with no technical glitches. And we know, in these days, Jamie forgets to unmute if you're not able to connect. So we're really thankful to them for bringing us here and for ensuring the smooth running of the event. We thank you all that attended this event and for taking time out of your schedule to connect with us. And to our digital natives, please do connect with us on Facebook and on Twitter. UJComAC is our handle. And last but not least, thank you, Husain, for running this program for us and for directing and moderating it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lebo. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the Future Skills and Future of Work program. It's been fantastic. I hope you have a great evening. Please visit the UJ Alumni Facebook and social media handles at UJ Alumni. Thank you and have a great evening.
The University of Johannesburg, the future reimagined.